Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
Who's ready for a body count? Are you ready for a body count? I'm ready for a body count. Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, those are without question the biggest names in the slasher genre. But we're not talking about the likes of Freddy or Jason in this video. We slasher fans know about the big franchises, but there are a lot of fantastic slasher movies that don't get the attention they deserve. So I wanted to do a list of my top 10 favorite underrated slasher movies to honor the less talked about movies in the genre. A few things to get out of the way first. I'm not including Black Christmas, Maniac, or Madman simply because I already included them in my video of my top 10 favorite slasher movies. A lot of my favorite slashers of all time I do consider very underrated, but I already talked about them in that video, and I didn't want to just talk about the same movies here. I'm also not including movies like Prowler, Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine, or Sleepaway Camp. You cannot forget about those movies. They are great and very underrated slasher movies. It's just that I think they get more recognition than the movies I decided to put in this video. And don't expect movies like Torso, Deep Red, or Bay of Blood on this list, because those are Giallo movies, and I want to give Giallo cinema its own top 10 list. After all that, let's get started. Number 10, Just Before Dawn. One of the lesser-known backwoods slasher films. It's what you expect from a backwoods slasher. A group of friends go in the woods and get attacked by some backwoods hicks. The body count isn't that big, but there are some standout kills. This is a slasher that focuses more on the atmosphere than the kills, and the atmosphere is great. What helps give this movie its sinister vibe is the whistling. It's those little elements that help this movie stand out. Just Before Dawn is all about the quiet scares, like seeing one of the killers staring down from a hole in the roof, and the silhouette of a mountain psychopath staring down at a fresh kill. We're lulled into a relaxed state by the beautiful scenery before we're hit with the tense moments. The final girl, Connie, is what won me over. Most final girls are virginal and introverted, not coming out of their shell until they're fighting back against the killer. But Connie starts letting her hair down before the bodies start falling. She becomes sexy, more confident, and even develops into a better survivalist than the men in this group. If you're looking for a slasher that's a little more subdued but still delivers the goods, Just Before Dawn is a good one to check out. Number 9, Madhouse. People have questioned whether this is actually a slasher movie. Well, it has a body count and a guy in a mask going around killing people in different ways. So yeah, for me, it counts. Madhouse came out in 1974, the same year as Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas. But it's never grouped in with those pre-Halloween slashers. There are two main reasons why Madhouse is on this list. Vincent Price and Peter Cushing, two of my favorite horror actors.
Paul, Herbert, don't believe it. Well, it has been a long time.
Oh, to me it seems like only 12 years.
Whatever movie they're in, no matter how highbrow or low grade, they approach it with class. The plot involves a horror actor played by Vincent Price, who's famous for playing Dr. Death. He has a nervous breakdown after the murder of his wife. When he comes back to reprise the role of Dr. Death, the character appears to have come to life and murders everyone around him. This is actually a PG horror movie, but it's 1970s PG, so you still get decapitations, stabbings, and a pitchfork through the neck. This was back when PG actually meant something. Jaws was PG, Grizzly was PG, and that included a scene where a kid gets his leg ripped off, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre was going for a PG rating. It didn't really happen. It's a shame that PG doesn't really mean anything nowadays. Madhouse proves that PG can have some balls. Number 8, The Intruder. This movie is all about the kills. The premise is very simple. A slasher film in a grocery store. I know what you're thinking. How can you get good kills in a grocery store? Trust me, this has some of the best deaths in the genre. It's a shame that Intruder isn't talked about more. We get Sam and Ted Raimi in supporting roles and a short cameo by Bruce Campbell. Don't blink or you'll miss it. The main reason why a lot of people shit on this movie is because Bruce Campbell was given top billing on the DVD release, even though he's only on screen for a minute at most. Don't promise Bruce Campbell if you can't deliver Bruce Campbell. But other than that, Intruder gives us some fantastic kills. The grocery store setting actually works. It brings me back to a time when I was a teenager at my first job. Working with people my own age, shooting the shit during downtime, and then a maniac shows up and tries to kill everybody. Okay, that only happened twice. We've worked with every character in this movie. It helps you connect with the characters, and it makes their deaths more effective. We both want and don't want to see them die because the gore is so good. If you're in the mood for blood, Intruder is for you. Number 7, The Hills Run Red.
No movie just vanishes without a trace.
When it comes to post-2000 slasher movies, we mostly got remakes. Then we got the Hatchet movies and the Laid to Rest movies. Then there was The Hills Run Red. The plot involves a group of horror fans searching for this mysterious horror movie that vanished years ago. And as you would expect in a movie like this, the killer from the film turns out to be real. But not in the way you would expect. Most original slasher movies we get nowadays are throwbacks to 80s slashers, and even though I love me a good throwback, I like when a slasher tries to be its own thing.
Why the movie? Why is it so important to you?
Because people said it's the scariest thing they've ever seen.
The killer, Babyface, does have a Leatherface, Jason Voorhees vibe, but he still manages to stand on his own. Especially when we get to the third act, and we find out what's really going on. It also has one of the best endings in a post-2000 slasher movie. This is a good one for people who like good 2000s independent horror movies like Feast, Hatchet, and Laid to Rest. It takes a little while to get to the kills, but it's well worth it.
You don't have to do this.
Everybody is expendable for the good of the film.
Number 6, Slumber Party Massacre.
Let's read the fridge. Come on, I want to get out of here.
Brought to us by B-movie king Roger Corman. The main thing that makes Slumber Party Massacre stand out is that it was written and directed by women, and it has all the gore and nudity that you would expect in an 80s slasher. Slumber Party Massacre was originally written as a parody of slasher movies, but it wasn't filmed that way, allowing it to fit in with the greats of 80s slashers. It has its goofy moments, but so do a lot of 80s slasher movies, and those goofy moments make the movie so much more entertaining. One of my favorite scenes is when the pizza guy gets killed.
So Oh. Is the pizza? Oh. Well, life goes on after all.
The dark humor gives this movie a unique vibe, but hands down my favorite kill is when the girl next door is watching a horror movie while at the same time someone is being murdered outside her house. The cuts between TV and real kill fit so well together, making for a great death scene. The killer is one of the best lesser-known killers. True, he has that usual he kills because he's crazy motivation, but he still makes for a good bad guy. Slumber Party Massacre makes for a fun movie night. Forget the pillow fights at your next slumber party. Pop this in instead.
Oh. I feel better already. Really, I do.
Number 5, Maniac Cop 1 and 2. Yeah, this spot gets 2 movies. Oh well. Matt Cordell, the Maniac Cop himself, is one of the unsung slasher villains of the 80s. He's like a more intelligent Jason Voorhees with a badge. He even comes back as a zombie in the second film. I had a hard time picking between the two. The first movie has Tom Atkins and Bruce Campbell, 2 of my favorite badasses in the horror genre. It's a good mix of slasher and crime thriller. The second movie continues the cop thriller vibe, but also has some better kills. The Maniac Cop is even more ruthless in the second film, and we get an amazing fire stunt in the third act. But it doesn't have Tom Atkins. It does have Bruce Campbell, but not for that long. The 2 films were directed by William Lustig, the man who made one of my favorite slasher films of all time, Maniac. He has a knack for making sleazy New York movies. It was also written by Larry Cohen. Rest in peace. The Maniac Cop movies are a good blend of crime thriller and good old bloody fun. Number 4, The Funhouse. Another rest in peace to the late Tobe Hooper. Some people think Hooper peaked too early with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he also gave us Eaten Alive and The Funhouse. Poltergeist too, but Spielberg has his fingerprints all over that one. The main draw for this movie is obviously the setting. We don't get enough carnival horror movies. It does take a while to get to the body count, but the movie is so entertaining. The side characters are so much fun to watch.
Gentlemen, not fans. They are authentic and they are alive. Alive.
When we do get to the killer, it does not disappoint, especially the unmasking. Holy crap, that's one cool freak. This is another slasher where the kills aren't the bloodiest, but they stand out, much like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Tobe Hooper had a real talent for showing suggested violence and making it just as effective as full-blown violence. Funhouse gives us a good killer, a good setting, and one hell of a climax. I still haven't seen Hellfest yet, but we need more carnival horror movies. Number 3, Pieces. If you've been on my channel for 10 seconds, you know I'm a fan of the Grindhouse. I'm all about exploitation cinema, and if there was one slasher film that perfectly represented the best of sleaze and grime that we get from exploitation movies, it would have to be Pieces. It's all about the blood and nudity. We basically have a killer that's trying to make a human doll out of body parts from different women. It's similar to the movie May, which is also a great underappreciated horror movie. It's part slasher movie, part giallo movie, and even a kung fu movie at one part. Like a lot of slasher movies, the plot doesn't really matter. It's all about the death. It's definitely one of those movies that focuses more on being entertaining than being good. But it's so damn good at being entertaining. And the ending is wonderfully gruesome. It's so funny in a morbid way. The two taglines fit this movie perfectly. You don't need to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre, and Pieces. It's exactly what you think it is. If you like those taglines, this movie is for you. Number 2, Alone in the Dark.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
This movie is all about the atmosphere. A group of psychopaths escape from a mental hospital during a blackout. We've got Martin Landau and Jack Palance playing two of the Maniacs and giving great crazy performances.
Dr. Potter!
Happy trails.
Then there's Ronald and the Bleeder, two very violent people. Ronald is so damn big that he picks these people up and just breaks them with his bare hands. The Bleeder is this mysterious character that really adds to the third act. And tying it all together is Donald Pleasance himself playing another crazy psychiatrist.
Can I ask you what it was that you just said to him? I told him if he didn't stop all this nonsense, I would hoist him up and cut him in half.
We do get some good kills, but the suspense comes first. Like when the babysitter is on the bed. The main family of the movie is also fun to watch. The husband is so introverted, and his wife and sister like to go to punk rock concerts. It makes for an entertaining dynamic. We care about this family, which keeps us on edge when they're under attack. Such a good slasher that more people need to see. 4 killers for the price of 1.
There are no crazy people, Doctor. We're all just on vacation.
So we're at our number 1 spot, but before we get to that, I want to give 2 honorable mentions. First up is Tourist Trap. It's this bizarre supernatural slasher that came out in 1979 about this museum with mannequins. Then there's the 1980 Christmas horror movie Christmas Evil, which is about this guy who's so obsessed with Santa Claus that he tries to become Santa Claus. The reason they're not on this list is because people make the argument that they're not really slasher movies. You can see both sides of the argument, so I decided to give them the honorable mentions. But they are very good horror movies, and you should check them out. But now let's get to the number 1. Number 1, Alice, Sweet Alice. Alice, Sweet Alice is a fantastic 70s slasher movie that's criminally overlooked. We follow Alice, a young girl who was denied communion and is jealous of her little sister who will be getting her first communion. The movie begins with a young Brooke Shields in her very first role being murdered and burned. That's how it starts, killing off a kid. It sets up such a good tone, telling you no one's safe. The cinematography helps with the suspense. The camera is peeking around corners, looking through windows. It's very voyeuristic, like we're actually watching these murders from just out of view. It's a perfect whodunit slasher. The killer might be Alice, but it could be anyone. The killer's attire is so good. An old-fashioned raincoat with one of the scariest masks. The movie is very giallo-esque, which works for me because I love giallo movies. There aren't a ton of kills, but each one of them is so well done.
The overall atmosphere keeps you on edge, even when nothing scary is happening. Alice Sweet Alice is such a creepy slasher movie, and it deserves your attention. Who would have thought that a movie about a little Catholic girl could stand up with the likes of Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street? I'd rather see Freddy's burnt face than that mask any day.
Running away from me.
Well, there you have it, my top 10 favorite underrated slasher movies. Now let me know what some of your favorite underrated slasher movies are. I hope you had a good time with this video, and hopefully I'll have some more time to do some more top 10 lists soon, but until then, please leave your comments down below and give this video a thumbs up if you like what I do here, or give this movie a thumbs down if you don't like what I do here. This is your buddy Justin, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die. Now wish me luck. I'm off to become the next slasher icon. What do you want? It's the only weapon I could afford.